Abraxsus Lecture 1, Satanism and the Lema. Stemming from Aleister Crowley is much of Levian Satanism. The Lema, with its magical Jesus, is thought of as a Satanism. Is there more than renaming or rebelling to pagan Satanism? There is more to mythology than function and symbolism. Abraxas Lecture 2, the Lemic Satan, Lucifer, Baphomet, and the Esoteric Christ. Satan, Abraxas, Baphomet, Christ, and Lucifer are sometimes only terminology. The endings, all elements, their harmony, anointing, and enlightenment are templates for spirituality. Are we helping sentient beings and ourselves, or are we living in shells of religiosity? Is the empirical like the enemy and the spiritual like family? How does it get along and merge in you and me? Abraxas Lecture 3, the Lema, Satan, Lucifer, and the Esoteric Christ, Part 2. Submit to the unconscious flow of energized enthusiasm. The internal and external parts can be addressed by atheism. Don't stop and think, or you are in danger of falling into theism. There can be a unity without a monolarity, an identity without pantheism or panentheism. Whatever my love under will, theory and practice is my ism. Abraxas, Lecture 4 of 4. Satan and the Thelemic Trinity. Enid, Mary Blyton, and Joanne are J.K. Rowling, and their magical fiction are shells of spirituality. Whether God, other beings of planes, or the psyche, they are part of processes I can more than see. Abraxas and Baphomet seem to be real beings to me. We can become as Baphomet means. And I guess there's a video on the Fairy Faith documentary, so I will share my comment on that. The fairy are just another name for the gendered beings with freedom of choice that are called jinn, asuras, davas, elementals, fire beings, and more. Maybe they do not all shapeshift. What if the increased rate of sanity has a factor of society devaluating and even mocking these other beings? Increased rate of insanity, I mean. Just as pendulums can be moved unconsciously, so can divining rods. Magnetic and other fields can attract or repel entities. The pre-Christian faiths often make more sense in parts of their spiritual views of many types of jinn. I don't believe in ghouls, but we and the fairy can evoke reactions out of each other according to the beliefs. Ruins and peculiar plants do build up in non-human beings at times, destroying, may attract various unseen beings, and that will increase in time, or, well, it might anyways. Destroying or altering things in the physical world can upset things in the spiritual world, just as the fairy would leave a white blood or other residue psychically sensed. The fairy hill or Janut intersecting the Nasut, or the beings themselves, can bring things of the arts, like music. I would agree there is a lot of mistaking the spiritual realms for physical occurrences. But there is more than psychology going on sometimes. Well, of course, there's the mistaking the psychology for spirituality, spiritual realms. Sometimes spirits want seclusion the same way humans do. Doing stuff for the fair folk is devil worship, and Satanism is not quite as the Christians portray it. How to love and understand someone who is bipolar? Well, might as well share that here too. Love as a verb means opposing the drugs, bad media habits, bad diet, and bad company that either causes or makes it worse. Love as a noun would be to love aside from the problems. Unconditional love is not a lack of judgment or forgiving when it is not as beneficial. 5 ways to love would be mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychically. Physically and sexually. The original self would not be recovered, but it can take over a year with some medications to determine the sober self. Even a good drug experience does seem like rape of the senses, feelings, or emotions. At first, or at some point, people can be helped and even fixed, but not by force. It can be said that a person's perspective can be accepted as such, but always denying your own interpretation is not good for either. Going to bed soon after dusk and getting up between dawn and sunrise is more effective for mental illnesses than medicine, according to the research. People change plans for all sorts of reasons, but that doesn't mean it should automatically result. Since I cured myself of the bipolar, OCD, and ADHD, the abilities attributed to them either did not go away or got better. As a medical issue, the withdrawal periods are for the worst for condition and the experience. Then is being on the drugs. A healthy diet of whole foods can do far more than supplements that may not undo food allergies or chemical treatments. The reaction to the chemical treatments. Doctors said I'd be dead if I could die in 3 to 6 months if I ate like a typical American. Different types of doctors, by the way, have pointed out how bad it is for my health. Don't need to go into that. If drugs are not okay for some, that is a risk all who do have to be willing to do. People with psychiatric conditions are more likely to hurt or kill themselves on medication or recreational drugs. Drugs can make a person not care or help them convince themselves of what is not the case clinically. Religion and even spirituality alone is actually the best defense and source of treatment. And what is this? The scariest thing about life. A Sweet OVV video. Some YouTuber from Seattle that made a video of the cave that I wanted to make a video of. I wonder if it's available to visit the 8 caves and be alone anymore. But all of benefit is only a means. The Bible condemns secular music. Actually, all pleasures can be had in righteousness. All pleasures can be had in righteousness. Why the ring? I thought you said you were not married. Yeah, what is this? What's with some women that have a ring on their right finger, and it's like, well, I'm not married. They just want to deter the guys that are not going to ask them out if they think they're married. But it's far more common nowadays to find a guy who's willing to risk breaking up a marriage than the other way, than messing with a woman that's single. I hope they understand that part. All of benefit is only a means. The Bible condemns secular music. Actually, all pleasures can be had in righteousness. Why the ring? I thought you said you were not married. Okay. Maybe I shouldn't have. What? Oh. Well, I get maybe it was a short comment and that was my thing, but okay, I will. Okay. Grimorium Verum. What am I going to say about Grimorium Verum this time? Malediction? Okay, I don't know where. I'll just say it starts with Solomon speaking to his son Rehoboam. It is possible that we would be talking about different than the ancient Israelite kings, or it could very well be a father and son leading a Jewish community by their priestcraft. The story goes that some type of angel came to him when he was muttering God's name, Yah, or Mirabilia, die, in bed, and told him, 2 Chronicles, Debri, Himim, 1, 11 through 12. I would recommend these two verses be read or recited with rituals of the Grimorium Verum. Could this have been one of Satan's fallen angels or demons? This led to him concluding not only that secular science was in vain, but that he had all knowledge and skill within him. The knowledge of internal power and knowledge to be awakened is central to certain Gnostics, Luciferians, and satanic groups. This is particularly true when it is in the absence of the consent or approval of the secular and religious authorities. Rehoboam is to anticipate the paternal blessing, to take advantage of the spiritual work of his father Solomon, and to bury his clavicle, shoulder blade, text, in an ivory or ebony box after his death, and place it in his father's tomb. Should any spiritual text be so hidden from the world? Should any text be so dangerous as to not be fitting for the wicked? Al-Quran 56:79 mentions how Al-Quran should not be touched except by the purified, or it will not be grasped except by the purified. Al-Mutahharun. I think I did a typo there, but Al-Quran 1782 mentions the use of Al-Quran as healing for those who believe. Okay, there was a typo in the middle of in the next sentence, so look up the verse. Al-Quran 1782 mentions the use of Al-Quran as healing for those who believe, but a means of increasing in loss for the transgressors. Muslimin. Supposedly, King Solomon's order was followed, but both sacred and secular sources teach that Rehoboam was a wicked or incompetent king of ancient Israel. The only way this story could be true, considering all factors, would be that either Solomon and Rehoboam were not ancient Israelite kings, or King Rehoboam misused the text after King Solomon's death. Those two verses would also be good for a ritual connected to this preamble, but Al-Quran 34:49 and 1780-81 would also serve for this purpose. So we have how many verses? We have 5 verses. Just as what is said to have happened with others deemed to be saints, Solomon's tomb was enhanced. Jero Greco of these Babylonians was said to have sought God's assistance in understanding this ancient text that they found. Could the names and details of the story be more symbolic than literal? Some sort of angel showed up and told him there was good reason that the knowledge of the clavicle had remained occult, but he would have revelation about them. An angel of forbidden magic would be one of the Shayatin Minal Jinn, or male and female fallen angels made of different spiritual matter than the loyal, unfallen angels. After understanding it, Jero Greco returned it to an ebony case, to its place with prayers, that God not let anyone have the secrets of the book who is not both wise and righteous. What if there were characters by these names or titles involved in the story, but just not who people assume they were? We do find the same in the thought about the Christian Bible being by people generations after the characters mentioned in the text with similar names. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the Acts, and the Romans. Well, no, I'm only Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. It was said that the Italian elite of church and state were against those who knew what the clavicle taught. Why should the priest and statecraft be against alternative spirituality? May Italy and all nations benefit from the truth and value found in the occult. When we go to the Sanctum Regnum, our King of Spirits portion of the Grimorium Verum, we return to the idea that this necromancer was a Hebrew rabbi rather than a prophet that predates anything that can be called Judaism by half a century, much less the historical acknowledged Judaism that started in the second book of Maccabees and continues in many forms today. The first part about the characters and how they relate to air, land, sea, are infernal realms. Next is the low magic, knowingly worked through demons for changes in this world. The third part is more on the method. The main body of the red dragon was also upon occult secrets. The key to the evil magic is the demonarchy. Sing Ambuth is said to have his will in pacts. Rabid Anadas is said to provide the information to invoke, evoke, and bind himself. Rabid in Adap is said to give the decree through his subjects. The pacts are implicit and explicit, and they may involve the archdemons of the four winds. Is that of the east particularly focused on as one incense is mixed with blood of the practitioner or a young male goat is offered? The spirit of the east is thought to be Amodio or Samuel or Orions or Uriaus or Baal or Asmodel or Magawa. The spirit of the south is called Amemon, Mahazuel, Maimon, Moimon, or Agium. The spirit of the west is called Baemon or Paimon or Azazel or Poimon. The spirit of the north is called Agien, egg in, not again. Azael, Agion, or Amemon. Then are the three powers, subordinates and spirits. Lucifer is over Put or Sunt, Satanakia, and Agaliorap. Beelzebub is over Tarkamaka and Florete. Astaroth is over Sagatana and Nesperos. The 18 under the Duke Sirach vary some in order and variation of the name per grimoire. But we have the same basic list. Klaunik is over wealth. Musisin is over political power. Bakaud is over weather. Frehmast is over women and girls and enjoyment thereby. Klepoth is over the dance. Kil is over earthquakes and related phenomena. Merfilde is over your transportation. Klesthert is over the phenomenon of light and day. Circade is over animals. Sigal is over hybrids and what seem to be miracles. Hikpakath is over bringing things and beings to you. Hamatz is over books, and I presume media. Frukasere is over resurrection and necromancy in general. Galand is over excitement and disease. Sergot is over locks and ciphers. Morail is over invincibility. Frutimiri is over feasting and being in general. Huik te egara is over sleep and wakefulness. Satanachia and Satanikya are said to be over 4 powers, which are over 35 to 54 demons. Serguthe are Sukunth. Eramal or Eramal. Trimasel or Trimasael or Irmasael, and Sustagriel or Safugiel are the 2 main and simple powers. Serguthe is for power over women for good reasons. Heramal is a teacher of medicine. Trimasel is a guide for chemist and prestidigitation. You know, what people usually mean when they say magic, I think. Sustagriel is a teacher of the occult that is thought to give familiar spirits and mandrakes. Under the 2, Agalia Raps, you know, those are 2 variations, and Tarehimal or Tharithimal is Elkogap or Eleogap or Elelogap over water. Under the 2 Nebarots or Nambrot, and probably Sagatana is Skangi Urazion. Hal and Sergulath. Hal is over writing and language in general. Sergulath is over war, crushing enemies and ventures. The latter 2 are over Praculo, Harestum, Brulether, Pentagne or Pentagnene, Aglasis, Sidragasum, Menasans or Menasum, and Bakan or Bakans. Procula is over 24 hours sleeping. The stage is asleep, and prophecy. You know, one of the 3 types of dreams comes from demons. Haristum is over not being burned upon exposure to fire. Bralather over love from women and teaching what happens in the heavens. Pentagnagne is over the love of political elite and invisibility. Abraxas is over movement throughout the world and destruction of enemies. Sidragasum is over young women being made to dance or be strippers. That's a very popular demon nowadays. Menasans or Menasum is over gambling and games of chance. Bakan or Bakans is over a rising hatred and jealousy between you and one of the opposite sex. Other demonarchy seems to not fall into a noted order within Grimorium Verum, but more detail of the hierarchy of demons does now, and will emerge. That kind of reminds me of one of the, well, it's my own writing, but that reminds me of one of the articles of faith of the church that I grew up in. A person does not have to become a servitor or take a servitor with practices that involve demonology, nor does one have to use particular animals, bones, or precious stones. The idea of a stone bearing the initials of a person left to right or right to left if that is how your language is read, makes sense. It also makes sense to differentiate between the male and female and what side to carry it as a reminder. The male has it on the right, and the female on the left. It may also be important to regard the hours of the planets and days that descend the tree of life over and over again, starting with the sun on Sunday, the moon on Monday, Mars on Tuesday, Mercury on Wednesday, Jupiter on Thursday, Venus on Friday. Very important to trim, best day of the week to trim your nails. And Saturn on Saturday. This may be upon the sunset to sunset or midnight, the actual midpoint of the night, divided into 12 hours for the night and 12 for the sunrise to sunset. The progress goes Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Moon. The cycles of the moon, starting at the sighting of the crescent moon, and the 8 points of the solar year are also important to some operations. Lucifer is said to be over Asia and Europe, and to appear as an attractive young man who reddens with anger. Wouldn't these associations be more in line with medieval fiction than the linguistic, biblical, and classical use of this title of Venus? Beelzebub is said to be over Asia, including areas that produce the Semitic race and Madagascar, and to be grotesque forms of creatures like calves and long-tailed billy goats that turn into phenomenally large, fire-spitting flies with a dog's howl. Could this have more to do with the prejudice against African-based culture? Astaroth is said to be over the Americas, but probably also over Antarctica, the Arctic, and Australia. This was probably feminine in origin. This, which was probably feminine in origin, is said to appear black and white. Her form is usually hominid, and can be of a donkey. The characters of the superior, subordinates, and inferior spirits are said to have been personally revealed by them. The lower ranks are said to respond quicker and said to be easier to work with. Is there more needed than the symbols, proper timing, and place? It may be necessary for the magic circle to have the lozenges around the oval band with Adam written with the letters facing away from the center and going clockwise, starting the south, or it may be suitable to put your or your group's name in the double oval after the Middle Aramaic, Armia, or one's own language is letter B in the east, which represents the identity as a human with lunar qualities driven by the solar principles. Some would write the cardinal directions in each corner outside of all this, but central would be the 4 different sets of 4 symbols outside the sides of the lozenge. Facing outwards, each has the same symbol on the closest right side, and the other 3 are similar. The Latin of Orient, Midi, Occident, and Septentrion for east, south, west, and north should be enough indication that this was changed or invented after the emergence of Judaism, instead of being preserved from the kingdom of Israel. The SS continues with a HTVPHESAO 4-letter name of the worshipped, C incantation written for Skrylin as a messenger of the others. Wouldn't the demons be more pleased with Shaitan, Urinator, or some other tetragrammaton in the place of Yahweh, increasing existence? How can we serve 2 masters? Another oration follows, and what is probably the secret of secrets in respect of prayers mentioning the human being, self-debasement, deliverance of the Israelites across the large body of water, and cleansing from sins as being washed. A knife, quill knife, and lancet are made in the hours of Jupiter with a particular prayer mentioning the sky, heavens, mineral, plants, animals, weather, the spiritual beings, and the sun to obtain what one wishes without bad side effects to what is worshipped. This is followed by the confessional or penitent psalms of 6, 32, 38 or 37, 51 or 50, 102 or 101, 32, 31, 30, or is it 33? 102 or 101, 130 or 129, 143 or 142, 71 or 72, and 116 or 117. Al-Quran might be said to have 2, 201, 2, 285, 3, 16, 3, 147, 7, 23, ayat. Surah, then ayat. 7, 23, 7, 100, 7, 193, 11, 3, 11, 90, 12, 92, 21, 83, 23, 103, 24, 22, 47, 85, 14, and other than these 15 as verses 1 and 109 through 114 as 7 chapters. I set aside pins for my spiritual journals. I can use mock knives or dull knives. In addition to these, I also think a pin or needle can serve appropriately as a carving tool. The final oration here would be like DLCPVMLCAM are the pure angels and guard over useful tools. Wouldn't it be easier to call on Yea, the God over the living beings? The northern tetragrammaton. And I'm going to close here. I don't know what the next video is going to be called, or if I'm going to do more of these videos today, but Hail Saturn!